What is going on, Z.S.L family? I am your host, Pistol Jake, and we are back here with another video for Z.S.L exclusive episodes. This is an exciting one because it's finally over. The first round is come to conclusion. We are here the morning after day one of the NFL draft, and boy, was it unpredictable, to use a perfect word. And I'm not just saying that because my mock draft was off, but if you check anybody's mock draft, I don't think anybody really had it planned out the way it did, the way it stuck together in the first five, and they just picked players that they wanted at those picks, and it was just a lot of things to unpack, and we're gonna unpack it real quick with a short little video for y'all, just to give my personal reaction to the draft, and see if we can't see how this may unfold for the rest of the draft and for the rest of the off season, and see what's gonna come to after seeing who they selected. So first thing I want to speak about is, if you were to have watched a certain podcast and you know starts with the last letter in the alphabet, you know ends with a L but never takes one, um somebody might have told you that there was going to be a lot of trades in this draft, and boy was there was 8 trades on draft night in the first round, and 9 including, if you include the Dexter Lawrence trade. And I also think there's a lot more trades to come, not necessarily like, obviously, teams are going to trade up and trade back in the day 2 and day 3 of the NFL draft, but I think a lot of different players may get traded now that you see who has got drafted by certain teams, and we're gonna unpack that as we go. And I'm just I was taken back by it. Watching it, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't see none of this. I didn't see half of this stuff happening. Some of it, that some stuff that unfolded was kind of, you could see it happening as it was going, and it wasn't that surprising. But it was like, it was just, it was a very interesting draft to watch. I'll definitely say that. Other drafts I feel like were way more predictable. Like I said about the talent in this draft, I think that probably had to be a factor in it. The lack of talent. I mean, no, like I said, no disrespect to these players, because they are the most talented in the coming out of college right now. But it's not like you know past drafts with those star-studded names where it's like, oh, for a fact this guy's going 2, for a fact this guy's going 3, 4, 5, whatever, whatever the case may be. But yeah, let's pull um this draft up, the first round. Here we go. These are the first round selections. Obviously, to nobody's surprise, Fernando Mendoza goes 1. Uh, we knew this was gonna happen from the jump, and it was just a matter of when they were gonna chime these bells and say the 2026 draft has opened. They couldn't run to the podium quick enough to say Fernando Mendoza. So we're not going to spend too much time talking about him. We've already spent enough time talking about him. But I want to dive into this second pick of David Bailey, because if you watched my mock drafts, I had him mocked to go to the Jets. Basically, every time I did a simulation or did anything where I, controlled the Jets, I had them picking David Bailey until I did my 3.0, and I just kind of got cold feet on it. Honestly, I thought it was the no-brainer here. He's, just plug and play. You don't even have to coach him up. He's going to be a, day one starter for you at defensive end or edge. And it was a no-brainer for me. But then I kept thinking, I kept seeing Arvell Reese getting mocked to them and things of that nature. And, it kind of made me change my pick. You know what I mean? So that was a surprise to me. David Bailey to them. I mean, not necessarily a surprise, but it was like a, I was right all these all this time. So that was interesting. the Cardinals staying put and drafting Jeremiah Love didn't make much sense to me for a team that you need, you know, you need more players than almost anybody else in the draft. Like you're one of the, you know, other than the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins probably need the most, but after the Dolphins, it's a toss up between the Cardinals, Jets, and Titans as far as, need for, talent. And you go get the what I believe to be is the best player in this draft in Jeremiah Love, but does he really answer all those questions for you? You don't have an offensive line to run behind. It's gonna look. I think it's gonna look a lot like the Raiders did last year with Aston Genty. You'll see him. You'll see the talent is there, like we saw with Aston Genty. But I just don't see the value there in drafting Jeremiah Love, other than you're trying to sell tickets and you get a big name like Jeremiah Love. So that's good for the fans. They get a jersey to buy, and after that, I don't really know how much that really does for the Jets. That comes to the fourth pick, where it's Carnell Tate, and this is a player that I'm never really, I didn't really think that long about him going there, because I thought Jeremiah Love would be available there. So if they went offense, I would think they went Love. But I would think they go defense with the new coach of Robert Saleh, and I obviously had him mocked to go Sonny Styles a lot there. So there's that. But you know, Carnell Tate, Cam Ward gets his receiver of the future for real. So I think it's a solid pick. I think he's one of the smoothest receivers in this draft, and I think he's going to be a stud for Cam Ward. So, and that brings us to 5, which was a shocker. One, because Arvell Reese fell to 5. I would have thought he would have got took by the Titans at that pick. Honestly, I was thinking the Titans were going to take him. Once they didn't take him, I was like, oh my goodness, where is he going to go? Because the Giants don't really need an edge. But there he goes to the Giants, and maybe it was foreshadowing. I don't know if anybody else saw the video that I think it was either the NFL posted it or Bleacher Report or something of John Harbaugh talking to Arvell Reese and giving him some wise words. I guess that was like foreshadowing of this pick, and now that brings us to the assumption that they will be moving one of those edge rushers, whether it be Brian Burns, because he has a lot more trade value, or Thibodeau, just because he's kind of the odd man out. You know what I mean? So I think they can get away with having a dual Carter and Brian Burns and Arvell Reese all play together. But I don't see the value in having all 4 of those guys. Like, I know you can never have too many edges, but there's a difference between a rotational guy and a guy that's supposed to be starting but on your bench, just wasting money, and and I'm not sure that any of those guys will be happy with that, having to keep on rotating like that. So that's something to keep your eyes on. I think maybe a day 2 trade where Thibodeau, you trade Thibodeau for a second round pick, or you know, like I said, the value's not gonna really be there for Thibodeau because the production wasn't necessarily there the past year, and now it's like you have to move him. So teams may be not willing to give up that high of a draft pick. I was thinking on day 1 they maybe trade into the first round with Thibodeau and get a D tackle to replace Dexter Lawrence and really build up that defensive line, but they didn't make a move, and we'll see what happens in day 2. There's still some decent guys on the board that they can even they got a draft pick in day 2, and they could also maybe trade Thibodeau and get into that second round as well, really build that team up. And I honestly, I know people were mad about it, but I think John did a decent job, you know, yesterday in the draft. Um, Arvell Reese is a top notch talent, and then Francis Mauigoa, we'll get to that, is another top of the top of the line talented guy that's gonna round out that offensive line for them. But yeah, let's get to our first trade, where we had the Chiefs trade with the Cleveland Browns for the number 6 pick. They swap 6 and 9, and they give the Browns also pick number 74, which is a third round pick, and a fifth round pick, 148. Um, I'm sorry, but that was a steep price to pay for a Mansour Delane when you still have Sonny Styles on the board, Jordan Tyson on the board. I know he dropped even further, but a Ruben Bain Jr. on the board. A Francis Maui Noah still on the board. You had a lot of talent there on the board. Spencer Fano on the board. You had a lot of talent there on the board for you to move up for a corner where there's a lot of corner talent late in the first round that I think you could have got at 29. So it kind of made me raise my eyebrow. I did have them in my mock moving up to 3 to get Arvo Reese, but that's a different type of talent. At edge, it's the value at edge is just kind of it's unquestionable, I guess, is the term I'm looking for. But yeah, so there's big question marks there for me with the Saints moving up 2 spots or 3 spots to get, a corner where I think he probably would have fell to them. I guess you maybe were scared that the Saints would take him, but the Saints took Jordan Tyson, so it looks like they was looking at offense of help and trying to get Tyler Shuck another, weapon. And that pretty much rounds out the top 8. We'll speak about Sonny Styles to Washington. I think is, just pick it and ship it, clip it and ship it. I think it's just it's a solid pick for them, to replace Bobby Wagner. So that moves us on to 9, where the Browns get to finally take their pick after trading back, and they get Spencer Fano, very versatile offensive lineman. I like him a lot. I don't know if I like him more than Francis Maui Noah, given the fact that he was still available right there. And I think you kind of had to go tackle, so I guess they just went with the one that they liked the most, because right there you already Jordan Tyson is gone, Carnell Tate is gone. Unless you're taking Mekhi Lemon at 9, which I don't think it was really he was that type of talent to go at 9. I don't think he was a talent to drop as far as he did, but I don't think I would have took him at 9 either. So I'd be happy as a Browns fan taking Spencer Fano here. And then we get to 10, where we spoke about Francis Maui Noah going to the Giants. I like building up the trenches. So I can't really knock John Harbaugh, like I said, but I would have really loved a Caleb Downs pick right here. And now you leave the Cowboys like shitting themselves. And it's just it would have been a fun pick to do, because and I honestly think, like I said, you could have traded back in, say you package Thibodeau and a first rounder next year. I mean, that may be too steep of a price. Thibodeau and a second rounder next year for one of these late picks, or maybe your second rounder this year, and Thibodeau to move up to 18, where you could have took Monroe Freeling, or move up to 21 where you could have took a Max in Achor and get that tackle that you wanted instead of Francis Maui Noah, which I know he's talented, but is he that talented? And but I still think it's a solid pick nonetheless. But yeah, that moves us on to 11, where the Cowboys move up a pick. That brings us to another trade. I'm sorry, let me pull this trade up, where the Cowboys trade up from 12 to 11, so they move up 1 spot. They was not playing around with Caleb Downs. They didn't want him to go to Miami. They should have traded up to 10, because I would have been scared that the Giants took him, like I was saying. But they trade, they give up 2 fifth-round picks to move up 1 spot. So it's like maybe the value's equal. I would have tried to move up and give him 1 fifth-round pick. You're moving up 1 spot. So, if you're moving out that spot as the Dolphins, you didn't really care about taking Caleb Downs anyway. Because if you wanted him, you would have took him right there. So you're just, So, I mean, it's a little too steep for my liking, but they get their picks replenished later on when they trade back again. Um, but yeah, that's that. And then the Dolphins get Caden Proctor, a highly talented tackle. He can be one of the best tackles in the league, I believe, with his athleticism, and he can also be a weapon for you out catching the ball or doing things of that nature, possibly. So yeah, they just need pieces everywhere, and that's a solid pick. Which brings to the shell shock of the first round is the 13th pick where the Rams selected Ty Simpson. Um, I've been saying it since the draft, since I started talking about the draft. I think Ty Simpson is a first round talented quarterback, and I think you weren't going to be able to sit back into the second round and select him. I didn't know he was going to go this high though. I, I I I definitely didn't know he was going to go this high. I think the Rams could have possibly traded back and still got him at 20 or 20 in the mid 20s. I think they could have still got him and maybe got some more draft capital off of that trade back. But they take their quarterback of the future. He's going to sit behind Matt Stafford and learn a lot. Him and Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, and Ty Simpson in the room together. They're gonna I think he'll be a solid starter for them once Matt Stafford calls it quits. And then we bring us to 14, where the Ravens sit tight and just take the best offensive lineman in the draft. And let me explain myself as to why I believe he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. And I defy somebody to tell me I'm wrong. Who's the best guard in the draft? Unquestionable. Vega Owane. Now, who's the best tackle in the draft? Some would say Francis Mauigoa, but he got taken after Spencer Fano. Caden Proctor got taken at 12. So is he really the best? Is Spencer Fano the best? Because people are saying Francis Mauigoa is the best. So there's a lot of, talent at tackle that's kind of even. Vega Owane is the best guard, no questions asked. So if you're not even the best at your position, how you going to say you're the best offensive lineman in the draft? There's going to be an argument for all those tackles, but there's no argument for Vega Owane. So I think the Ravens got a steal. I think the value at guard obviously isn't as highly touted as tackle, but we don't need tackle. So the value at guard is very highly touted when you look at the play that we had last year. So it's really, it's really impactful for us specifically. And I want to talk about that pick again because I had us trading back, and honestly, I was surprised we didn't get a trade back. I'm guessing the reason behind that is nobody really wanted to move up or felt like they needed to move up. Because when you're sitting there at 14, you got Vega Owane available. You got Ruben Bain sitting there for you to take, and you got Kenyon Sadiq. All three of those guys are available. So you're sitting there like I'd be happy with any three of these guys. Obviously, I had us mocked to go Kenyon Sadiq and or Vega in multiple different mocks. I also talked about Ruben Bain possibly dropping there and us maybe taking him. So like I was saying, it's surprising that we didn't possibly move back a few picks, let the board fall, and one of those guys would have still been sitting in our lap waiting to take at if we would have moved back to a 17 or 18 to take him. I know the Vikings wouldn't have traded up because of who they picked, but we'll get to that shortly. Um, so that goes on to 15, where they take a no-brainer. Ruben Bain, the Bucks get their edge rusher of the future. It's pretty much a no-brainer. He shouldn't even have dropped that far. I thought he would have went like 8 to the Saints. I was surprised to see the Saints go get a receiver, and then the Jets get a weapon in Kenyon Sadiq. They touched on the defensive side. Now they're gonna get a weapon on the offensive side to go with a Geno Smith reunion. Um, So that moves us to 17, where the Lions take Blake Miller, offensive tackle Clemson. My guess is they move. I keep blanking on his name. So, Sewell, Sewell, Sewell. they'll probably move him to left tackle and have Blake Miller start at right tackle like he did for 4 years at Clemson. Um, Now this was the surprise pick for me. I think Vikings kind of, they kind of reached here. Caleb Banks, I believe he's a first round talented guy. With the foot injuries though, I think his, draft stock kind of fell, and he would have been, you would have still been able to get him late in the first round, maybe early in the second round. So I think you could have maybe traded back here and got some, got some more draft picks for this year or maybe even next year. And but they take Caleb Banks. So I think he's going to be a stud when he gets healthy, and if he gets healthy. It goes on to 19 where the Panthers get Monroe Freeling. Honestly, I was higher on Monroe Freeling than a lot of these other tackles. I thought he was better, a little bit better than, you know, uh, Blake Miller. So I was kind of surprised that he dropped to 19. I thought they would the tackles would go like hotcakes in the mid teens, and he drops to 19 where the Panthers get somebody to protect Bryce Young. And let's talk about this fiasco that went down at 20 and 21 where the Steelers were on the phone with Makai Lemon, and the Eagles trying to call Makai Lemon because and couldn't get to him because he was on the phone with the Steelers. They trade up with the Cowboys, one pick in front of the Steelers to select Makai Lemon, wide receiver, USC. And it's just it's beauty to my ears as a Ravens fan just to know they hosted the draft and then this shit happens to them, and it's just like this is what they get. They talk all this shit all year long about, oh, they so much better than us. They're 10 and 13. I seen a bunch of people talking shit today, on a couple of videos. Oh, they 10 and 13 against us. Yeah, you gonna win when you playing backups at the end of week 17 because we already clinched a playoff spot. That's all I got to say. Talk to me when y'all win a playoff game. You know what I'm saying? Talk to me when y'all win a playoff game. Then y'all can talk to me for real. Talk to me when y'all don't get straight bamboozled. My man's Howie Roseman with the unbuttoned shirt. David on his chest with the chest hair teaming through it. Straight called up the phone, said, "Let's make a deal because I feel like it." Draft day movie. That's a hell of a pool if y'all know. Uh, but yeah, then Steelers are stuck drafting Max Inachor, which I'm not mad at the pick. Honestly, you needed help. Broderick Jones with the neck injury, you don't know, that's kind of up in the air. So you get a talented tackle. So I'm not gonna hate too much, but I had to let him hear about that. Well, let me go back to Makai Lemon with the Eagles. So this basically almost solidifies AJ Brown's departure. Sadly for the Eagles, it was a hell of a run with him, and he will go down as I'm speaking from a Eagles fanatic. He will go down as an Eagles legend. That's not me talking. That's a Eagles fan saying that verbatim. But yeah, I like the pick. I think he fits perfectly with Smitty and Wicks and Hollywood. He's a good slot receiver. He's gonna be able to sit in those zones and get open for Jalen Hurts. If they happen to say nobody really wants to trade for AJ because they think he's a diva or whatever the case may be, and they end up having to keep AJ Brown, I think he still fits in there with AJ Brown. Having AJ Brown on the outside, Smitty on the other side, backside, and Makai Lemon in the slot, and I think it's a great pickup for the Eagles, and Howie Roseman does what he does, and gets a ball player. But yeah, that's that on that. Chargers go Akeem Mesidor. They round out that edge rushing room with the aging Khalil Mack. Cowboys after trading back. Well, actually, let's look at the trade compensation for this pick. The Eagles trade a first round pick, number 20. I mean, the Eagles received the number 20 pick and a 7th round pick, and the Cowboys received the 23rd pick, a 4th round pick, or 2 4th round picks. Actually, so the Cowboys kind of made out like bandits, so they trade up that one pick with for two first round, 2 5th round picks, and their first round pick, of course. And then they trade back and get 2 4th round picks. So they replace their 2 5th rounds with 2 fourths, and they take them from a divisional rival in the Eagles. So that's very interesting, and that's, I don't know how Jerry Jones does it. It's the power of the, you know, white power, if you will. But let's keep moving. They select Malachi Lawrence, edge, UCF, and good solid player. Had 17 sacks the past 2 seasons. So hopefully they can get that type of production out of him. Then we move on to the Browns at 24, and they select KC Concepcion. They get a weapon receiver from Texas A&M University. They get a weapon for Shador. He's a guy that can take it to the house, get the ball in his hands. We know Shador, no disrespect to him, but he likes those dump balls. He likes that short to intermediate passing, so he can keep that completion percentage high. And Casey Concepcion is the player that can take that to the house. He can also help him on special teams as well. But yeah, there's then it moves me on to the 25th pick, where the Bears get a safety to replace Kevin Byard and Dylan Thieneman. Solid pick for them. I think he'll be good in that that backfield, on that defensive backfield, helping the Bears out where they lost a couple players to free agency this past year. And then we got another trade where the Houston Texans traded up, which is very surprising, very, very surprising for me. And they draft Keelan Rutledge. Okay, so Keelan Rutledge, he was my second best guard in the draft. And they received the first round, the 26th pick, and a 3rd round pick, number 91. And the Bills receive the 28th pick, which they ended up trading, and then also a 3rd round pick, number 69. So they move up in the 3rd round about 21 spots, and they also receive a 5th round pick, 161. Okay, so that was an interesting trade for me. Where they go get an offensive lineman that can help, protect CJ Stroud, which was an issue this past year. I will give CJ Stroud that. He was kind of, he was a little bit iffy. You starting to question that 5th-year option for CJ Stroud, but I think you help him out on the offensive line and maybe protect him a little bit better, and he can maybe bounce back. And that brings us to pick number 27, where we had another trade. This back. Oh, whoops! What did I just do? This last bottom 6 picks or whatever it was, trades out the wazoo for real. They just was trading all over the place. The Dolphins trade up to 27, and they also get the 4th round pick, number 138, and the 49ers receive the number 30 pick and a 3rd round pick, number 90. So they move up 40, 50 spots from the 4th to the 3rd round. The 49ers do. Which they ended up trading that pick away as well. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Um, but yeah, they trade up. The Dolphins do to get their corner in Chris Johnson. I think they were trying to jump. They're trying to jump the Bills because they thought probably they were gonna pick this player. He's a very talented, ball hawking corner, and with the ball in his hands, he's dangerous. He's very good at returning for pick sixes. So hopefully he can do some of that for the Dolphins. And then we have another trade where the Bills say, "Well, you just took our guy. We're going to trade back again." And they trade back with the Patriots, and the Patriots get another offensive lineman to protect Drake May. Let's see. Let's unpack that trade right here. The Patriots received the 28th pick, and the Bills received the 31st pick, which they end up trading again, and they receive a 4th-round pick, number 125. All right. So yeah, the Patriots get their offensive lineman to possibly replace Will. What's the dude's name? Will. I'm losing it. The offensive lineman they drafted last year. They probably are gonna move him into guard. This is kind of solidifying that. And then the Chiefs are the only team that stayed pat in these, or one of the only teams that stayed pat in this late stages of the first round. And they draft Peter Woods, D tackle out of Clemson. Um, this is where another question mark. I think the Chiefs were expecting to be able to get Caleb Lumu, and the Patriots jumped him and got him, and they were stuck drafting Peter Woods, D tackle out of Clemson. The need is not necessarily there with Chris Jones being there. I mean, I guess you could expect him to take over the mantle for Chris Jones when he retires because he's getting close to the edge, but I just think you could have got help other places, like Caleb Lumu. So you traded up in the first in the top 10 picks to get a corner when you should have just sat back and you would have ended up getting him most likely, and you should have traded up in the later end of the first round where you wouldn't have had to give up as much as you did in the top, and you could have got a Caleb Lumu to round out your offensive line and protect your franchise quarterback. So I'm not really necessarily liking what they did there. That moves us on to the Jets pick, where they draft Omar Cooper. They trade back in to the first round. So they trade the 33rd pick and the number 179th, a 5th-round pick, for the number 30 pick from the 49ers that they acquired from the Dolphins. And they draft Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver, Indiana. Talented guy, run after catch guy. So you get 2 weapons, Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper, to go on that offense, and a defensive weapon in David Bailey. That moves us on to the next pick, which is another trade where the Bills traded back again, and the Titans trade up back into the first round with the Bills, and they trade the 35th overall pick, a 3rd-round pick, and a 5th-round pick for the 31st pick, a 3rd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick. So basically, the Bills get to move up 3 spots in the 3rd round and move up from the 4th. They move back from the 4th to the 5th. This is a confusing trade, and I think that the Bills got robbed, honestly. Looking at it right now, I'm not going to dive too deep in it, but looking at it, I would need to look at it a little bit longer, but I'm not gonna do all that right now. But I think the Titans might have just robbed the shit out of the Bills for this pick. But they got the Bills got a bunch of they traded back all the way from 27, so they're not too worried about it. But the Titans get a defensive guy for Robert Saleh, like I thought they was gonna do with pick number 4, but they end up getting him at the end of the first, and they get Keldrick Fault, edge Auburn. I don't know how he fell this far, but he did, and they got a stud. I think he's got some a little bit of a learning curve to learning to do, but I think he's a solid pick for them to round out that defensive line with Jeffrey Simmons in there to maybe teach him a little bit a little bit of tricks of the trade. And that brings us to the last pick of the first round, where the Seattle Seahawks surprisingly stay pat and take Jadarian Price. I would have thought for sure they would have traded back for even just one extra pick, because there's not a very huge need. There was a lot of people available, which we're going to get into that after we talk about this. The people that were still available that they could take. And I thought they only got 4 picks. So I thought for sure, even if they would have traded back and acquired just one more pick in the 4th or 5th round, I thought for sure they would have did that. But maybe there weren't any suitors. Nobody really wanted to move up. I was thinking maybe the Ravens would be there with sitting there with 11 picks and the 45th overall pick. Maybe they move up to 32 to get a guy that they think not going to be there at 45. And the Ravens got a lot of extra picks to get to throw at the Seattle Seahawks that I thought they might be interested in, but that didn't happen, and that rounds out the first round. Overall, I'm gonna say winners and losers. Winners, I believe, were the Jets. Obviously, you get 2 weapons in David Bailey. I mean, you get 2 weapons in Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper, and then you get perennial Pro Bowl talent edge in David Bailey. And then another winner I had was the Titans. You hit on the receiver, you get a weapon on offense, and then you get an edge rusher on defense, Keldrick Falk, who I thought was going to go maybe late teens, early 20s, and you get him at the end of the first round. I thought that was a very good pick. My little sleeper winners of the draft were obviously the Ravens. You sat at 14 and you got what I think is the best offensive lineman in a draft. And then the Eagles, you stole Mekhi Lemon from the Steelers, which I appreciate that. They said next time you bring the draft to Pennsylvania, bring that bitch to Philly. Stop playing with them. You feel me? Stop playing with them. But yeah, now we're gonna talk about my losers, and I think they might be obvious. I'm not trying to be a homer or anything, but the Steelers, they lost. They, what I'm saying. If you got your players took out basically, you got your bitch took. Not to call Mekhi Lemon a bitch for real, but you got you was walking down the street, you was on a date, and Howie came chest out, hair teaming, like I said, Star David, and he was like, "Hold up, dummy, you don't even know what to do with that." He said, "You don't even know what to do with that." You feel me? So you just got to hold on your home court. Honestly, it was like came into your house and took your pick. It was crazy for me. I'm gonna be honest. That was just hilarious to me, for real. And then my other loser, my real loser is the Chiefs. I'm gonna be honest. You move up 3 picks. You give up a lot. You give a lot of capital to move up those picks for a player that I believe would have definitely been there. I mean, you never know, obviously, but I think you could have looked at the Commanders and said, yeah, they'll probably take Sonny Styles. And you could have looked at the Saints and said, they probably grab a weapon. I mean, you don't know, but there was a lot of buzz about Jordan Tyson later on, these past few weeks about, him moving into the top 10. And if you weren't a team that was going to take him, you could think a team in front of you is probably going to take him. I think the Giants would have took him if he would have fell to 10, personally. But yeah, I just don't like that pick. And then, like I said, I think the same thing happened to them that happened to the Steelers at the end of the first round, where the Patriots moved up and grabbed Caleb Lumu right in front of them at 28, and then they were stuck with, which I hate to say stuck with, because Peter Woods is a solid player. He was highly scouted, you know, they thought he was going to be top 10 going into, you know, the last season until, you know, Clemson just got ran all over and they was getting pushed around at the defensive line. So, and then he fell down the board 229 where they drafted him, which, you know, he's a solid player for him. He's going to be a solid player for him, and I expect him to be a good player for him, but I just feel like they really wanted Caleb Lumu, and that's who I have as my loser. So my winners are Jets and Titans, with a little side note of, you know, Eagles and Ravens, because I think the Eagles and Ravens always knock the draft out, honestly. And then, you know, my losers is the Chiefs and the Steelers. And the Steelers is really just, it's, you know, I admit it, it's some just, you know, I gotta poke at them for real. Like, I wouldn't be. It's like they that little annoying cousin that you gotta just, I gotta say something about it for real. But yeah, we're gonna end this talking about some players that got left out, and that's gonna be the end of this, you know, episode or exclusive, whatever you want to call it. Um, so Jamal McCoy is one of the biggest names that I think is that got left out. I think he's one of the most talented corners in this draft, and you know, the fact that he got dropped out of the first round shows that they really were not, you know, feeling that knee injury. So I don't know what the medicals look like. I don't know none of that. But, you know, you see he's sitting here day 2 waiting to get drafted. And that's a player that, like I was saying, the Seattle Seahawks could have traded back and ended up getting a Jamal McCoy, which would have been, you know, would have been a great pickup for them. I mean, there was a bunch of corners there's a bunch of corners that's still available right now as we, you know, as we go, like a Colton Hood or a Avion Terrell. Um, so yeah, I think they could have got a solid corner, and then they could have maybe took with that extra pick, you could have went and got a Mike Johnson Jr. I mean a Mike Washington Jr. at running back, or maybe you wait till the later rounds and you get a Roman Hemby or a Carryon Black or Jadarian Price will probably still be there. Nobody else was trading up to get Jadarian Price in the first round, which that's something I did want to talk about too, was the fact that 2 running backs from the same team went in the first round. There's no way that I would have guessed. I know some people mocked it, but I just personally would have. I'm thinking in my head like, there's no way 2 players from the same team at the same position get drafted in the first round. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But here we are. It happened. So but there's that. Another player that dropped out was Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I had him in all my mock drafts going in the first round. I think he was, you know, him and Dylan Thieneman was right there neck and neck for the number 2 safety coming out of this draft for me. Um, I just I think he's very good at creating turnovers, and that's, you know, that's highly, you know, highly sought after in this league is turnovers. And then one of my last, well, I'll go 2 more. C.J. Allen being there, you know, the linebacker position is not that highly valued, so I can see him dropping. But I thought a team like, you know, the Bills or maybe even the Patriots draft him late in the first round. But obviously those teams valued getting more picks and they traded back. Or the Patriots, for instance, valued going up and getting that offensive tackle. And then the last one I'll talk about is, or the last 2, my fault. I just saw somebody, Denzel Boston. He's really like a solid X receiver, and he fell out. Normally, the value at receiver is so high that a team was willing to move up and move mountains to go get a guy like a Denzel Boston, big body. You know, like I said, X, you know, archetype guy, and you know, he fell out into the second round, along with defensive linemen like Caden McDonald and T.J. Parker. So, like I said, the Clemson defensive line guys, those guys fell down in value because of, you know, the lack of production there. And then Caden McDonald, I don't know for what reason why he fell so far out. And a guy like Caleb Banks got took, you know, at 18. Like, That just doesn't, something's not adding up to me. You got a healthy guy that's gonna be a solid NFL player versus a injured guy. I just think those guys are pretty much even because I think Caleb Banks is better, but the injury kind of brings him down to the same level. And Caleb Banks went way high for my liking. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like guys I think that should have went. Um, there may be some other guys that people like, but I just didn't think any of these other guys were first round talents, if you will. Like a Cassius Howell, maybe somebody might say could have went in the first round, but I just think he's more. He was mocked end of the first and then beginning of the second. I definitely was possibly seeing him drop to 45 for the Ravens to select him. Um, but yeah, that's gonna finish us up for today. I'm glad if you came and to sit with me on my post post first round reaction slash breakdown. Appreciate it. uh I'm excited to see how the rest of this draft plays out because like we said, the bulk of the talent kind of is in that second and third round. So today these picks are going to really matter as far as rounding out your roster for next season with young talent. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you for joining me on this little breakdown, and always remember to like and subscribe, please, and don't forget, don't you ever forget, don't waste your time. Peace.